rather detailed forecast, kind of academic. And the good news is, I think by midweek, or not even, I think it's starting to, I would call it warm up here. It has been like an ice box, but let's just say the weather's not as cold as we get into the week. Good morning on a Monday, and kind of slow going out there. It feels like if you were, I guess the way we look at the Patriots game last night, if you're a New England Patriots fan, is that it was a great season. They got farther than anyone other than one team, the Seattle Seahawks, and that defense was absolutely crushing of the Patriots. But we'll come back to that. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning, Maine. Good morning, New England. Good morning, worldwide. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H. Our poll question up on X this morning at the Pulse of an H. We'll keep in the sports theme this morning. And congrats to the Seahawks. Good team, well coached, and a great defense. Poll question up on X this morning at the Pulse of an H. Are you watching much of the current Winter Olympics? Are you tuned in to the Winter Olympics? Yes or no? And then we'll have some results for you tomorrow. J-Dog on the boards. Good Monday morning, buddy, and hope you had a good weekend.
I did after last night. Everything I said was right. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it was a blowout, but it was a one-sided affair. Yeah, it was a one-sided affair, and never could get it going. But, hey, what a season.
From results, by the way, on Friday was Super Bowl 60th Sunday, who you got. It was 62.5% saying the Patriots, 37.5% saying the Seahawks. Thank you to all who took part in that poll. And, Jack, as you mentioned, are you watching the 2026 Winter Olympics? Yes or no? That's the poll question today.
All right, thank you, J-Dog. We're going to have more from our national contributors on Congress this week. You just heard Senator Fetterman from Pennsylvania saying, I don't think it's a big deal to ask someone to show some identification when they vote, but believe it or not, that's going to be one of the hangups this week, as well as the Department of Homeland Security funding as the members of Congress do their thing. We'll get an update. Doug Tengden, our economic thinker from World Market Advisors, will check in this hour with an interesting take on the election or re-election, or the successful parliamentary election of the Prime Minister of Japan, and why she and her election was so well received in Japan in terms of impact on economic markets. Neil Levesque also will be checking in, St. Anselm College, one of our political analysts and all-stars, talking about some of the political bombs that have been going off here in New Hampshire in some of these local races, and what is the mood coming out of last week, Governor Kelly Ayotte's State of the State. Where are things going in these congressional races? We will get some updates. And it seems that time may be one of the big aspects he wants to talk about, is we are not into really the spring yet, or summer, and the heat of these primaries on the political side. Also, Nancy Guthrie, the investigation into her disappearance. Supposedly there's a final, you heard in our Fox News, the kickoff of the show this morning, a final deadline looming in terms of this case. And J-Dog, you and I were talking before we went on the air. It seems that there's something very, well, all these cases you could call something unusual or bizarre, but this one is getting more bizarre. There's let's just say, a lot of law enforcement efforts going into this case, as there well should be. This is an 84-year-old, well thought of, nice, harmless, good-intentioned woman, and it's going on so many days now. And of course, her daughter, Savannah, well known nationally, but the law enforcement, I guess over the weekend, had a pretty good search, a consent search at the home of Annie Guthrie, the other daughter of Nancy Guthrie, at her home, and her husband's home, I guess. And they were about 4 miles away from Nancy Guthrie's home. And they conducted a search. They're also searching some of the drainage pipes and some of the areas around Nancy Guthrie's home for more evidence. But this is now, it seems to be, I thought they would have already solved this case, believe it or not. I thought going into the weekend they were getting closer, and I think they may have a pretty good idea. I don't even know at this point, J-Dog, if this thing's a legitimate ransom deal or not. No. And I wouldn't be shocked if the people ultimately responsible might have been closer to Nancy Guthrie than we realize. But I'm not going to get into conjecture. They're all over this. something's going to pop here, but it's just something seems to be very bizarre at this point. Not adding up, and almost a bungled type of situation. And I'd be at this point pleasantly surprised if they find Nancy Guthrie alive. It's been so many days and no signs or proof, J Dog, no audio, no video proof from kidnappers that she's alive. And it's just a really bizarre, sad situation. But they have the sheriff's department is sort of the main spokesperson on this, but they have federal, they have state, they have local, they have tons of law enforcement on this. And I guess now there's this final deadline looming in the kidnapping. So we'll see where it goes. And, if it actually was, obviously, someone took her and did harm to her. I just don't know at this point, what's going to happen. But I hope they wrap it up soon. We also, some of the other stories coming out of the weekend, obviously it was a huge sports weekend. I really don't, I'm sort of amazed at the sidebar story of Bad Bunny and the halftime show, and then the sort of the alternative halftime show on social media. I mean, no offense, I don't care. For the most part, I stopped really paying attention to the halftime performances. I think way back, I remember U2 doing it, pretty amazing. Sort of more of a unifying. I don't really care, but the point is, I can't believe all the chatter about the halftime show. Who cares? It's a football game, but it is entertainment. We have to remember that. This is ultimate entertainment. Patriots came up short, and the defense absolutely smothered the New England Patriots. But what a season. That's, who thought they'd even get into the playoffs? Who thought they'd even win a game in the playoffs? Who thought they'd win the AFC Championship? They've done this before a whole lot of times, including Coach Mike Vrabel, Coach of the Year. And Drake May is a great young quarterback. He just was smothered and crushed by a defense in a Seattle team that was better. And just that's what it is. But hey, you know what? Patriots are back in the game, as they say. And you got to remember all those other teams that would have loved to have been there. Probably none other, J-Dog, than two that I can think of. And that would have been the Denver Broncos and the Buffalo Bills. But the Patriots were able to get by the Broncos. So, all right. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H. It is Monday. We have some of the other stuff we're looking at this week. Again, Mother Nature. It's been a real winter, as we've been talking about. Cold weather over the weekend. I guess they're talking about tomorrow afternoon into the night, a little bit of snow. Again, not a big system. But when you look at the temperatures this week, it's fairly encouraging if you've been bundling up. We're going to get into the 30s, mid-30s, and maybe even one of the days up near 40, and that's going to feel like a heat wave. Hey, Alexa, Google, play the Pulse of an H. J-Dog on the boards. We'll update you on some of the State House stuff and a whole lot more on this Monday morning. And, of course, we have an extra FM signal now up into Maine and Portland, Maine, 98.7 FM, HD2, 98.1 FM, 1270 AM, the Seacoast of New Hampshire, Rochester, Barrington, Portsmouth, Dover, you name it. Mike Pomp this morning on the Morning Information Center over in our Dover studios, but now up into Maine. Lakes region, we have you blanketed and covered, 107.3 FM, 1490 AM in the lakes, also 98.3 FM HD2 in the lakes, and then, of course, 107.7 FM. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H. Back in a moment.
Good morning, New Hampshire, live from the Outdoor Pride Studios. Now back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
All right, we are back. Someone was telling me what the commercial, the TV stuff, or flat screen stuff of 30 seconds. The Super Bowl, J Dog, was it 80? I'm sorry, 8 million. 8 million for 30 seconds. $8 million for 30 seconds. Wow. We're also hearing more. We'll come back from the any updates this morning live. Rory O'Neill, our national correspondent, 11:10, will have an update on the Nancy Guthrie case, which included over the weekend a search of one of her other daughters' home 4 miles away from their home. And I believe she has a husband, a search there and back at the home. But we are hearing more about a 41-year-old incredible athlete and tough Olympian and world champion, if you will, in the past. Lindsey Vonn, her crash early into her downhill run, I guess it was just 13 seconds. She's in an intensive care room in the hospital over at the Olympics in Italy after being airlifted on that crash. I guess she really, I think they've already done surgery on her leg. I guess technically it was a fracture, which means, bad break. She's in intensive care, but not so much for the medical reasons. They say just give her some privacy. But the Olympics, we'll see where it goes. I will tell you on another note before I come back to some of our news talk on this Monday morning. Jack Heath, J-Dog on the boards. Hope you had a good weekend overall. Things are going to get a little less frigid this week, and we can all move on now. The NFL season's finally over, and they had some golf on over the weekend from the Waste Management in Phoenix, I guess, J-Dog, and then the Olympics underway. But I did watch on Netflix. I got to tell you, yesterday before all the sports came on in the afternoon and evening, I did catch, and I just got glued to it. It's just a great documentary on the Miracle on Ice I think they just called it The Boys of 80, The Boys of 1980, The Boys of 1980. And Jid, I don't know if you've heard about this documentary on
Josh McKelvin talked about it last week.
Wow. The best thing I liked about it, J-Dog, it was just so well done. And the real story of Herb Brooks, and what a brilliant, kind of incredibly tough psychologist he was as a coach to get them to come together and play really, get them to kind of hate him as a coach. But boy, it's just an incredible story. But they get all the players today at their age in life in the beginning, walking out and sitting on the actual bench in the arena in Lake Placid. And the whole documentary, they're really just they're just watching their lives from 1980. And people forget the gold medal win was against Finland after beating the Russians. And just them looking back, a couple of them lost parents to cancer during the period, including Jim Craig, the goaltender, and his dad being there, and his late mom. But just the tears and the laughs, and what a well-done documentary. And the reason why I bring it up isn't so much to talk about the Netflix sports documentary on the 1980 men's gold medal Olympic hockey team. It was to remind us all that we were living, ironically, at that time going into the Olympics in a very politically divided, very, very politically divided, intense political, bad morale, bad economy, recession, 20% interest rates, recession, gas lines, the morale of America was down, hostage crisis during the President Jimmy Carter administration. It was a very divided period in America, and people think that our divisiveness today is very unique and never happened before. I think the only thing today versus 1980, and the reason I'll come back to the Miracle on Ice hockey team, really, which was a bunch of, as Arizioni said in the documentary, a bunch of blue collar kids from Minnesota and New England coming together under Herb Brooks, who had been at the in Minnesota national, I think 3 national championships, and they picked him to be the coach. The mood in America, the divisiveness, we think today that it's really unparalleled. That it was a very divided, very down, the morale, the mood, just the whole mood of America at that time in 1980 was very sour, very negative, very down. They were, as I said, literally gas lines to get some gas into your car. It was an energy crisis, a recession. I mentioned the hostages in Iran. President Carter's presidency, interest rates went up to near 20%. Right now, what are they, 6%? Just think of these things. a very divided country. Morale was down, and the only thing different today, I think, with the device, and this is social media, makes it even more divided. Makes the silos deeper and more vicious. People are barbaric almost in their politics today and very divisive. And you're seeing it in Congress this week on things like, funding the government, debate over Homeland Security funding, debate over just showing an ID, real, voter ID, these things that divide us. President Trump, whatever. Very, very divided back then. And that's why I think it's pertinent to bring this up on 1980. And that's why the documentary was so good, because it showed some of this stuff. And the irony is this hockey team, of all things, not even as big of a sport. I mean, when they went in the Olympics, no one was talking about the men's hockey team at Lake Placid. They were predicted to come in about maybe 8th or 9th and not even get near a medal round. They were able to, I think their first game, they were able to tie Sweden. Then they beat Czechoslovakia. And then I think West Germany, and they kept going. Then, of course, the game against the Russians. People forgot the Soviet hockey team. It was so formidable. They'd win games like 16-1. Decades of just winning. And they called them soldiers and students, but they were professional hockey players for the Soviet Union. And back then in the Olympics, unlike today, where you got people like Charlie McAvoy, the Bruins playing, and professional athletes, back in the Miracle on Ice, these were all college hockey players and rookies, and not rookies, but amateurs. And they were able to, who thought, as Eruzione thought, people started focusing on this hockey team as they continued to win games against all odds. And of course, the biggest game, and Al Michaels with Ken Dryden was so brilliant calling that hockey game, in which it was just unbelievable that the Team USA beat the Soviets, because it was literally David and Goliath. It was, the odds were impossible, and this team was able to do it. And then in the end, I forgot, the Soviets kind of beat themselves because they had pulled their goaltender at the end of the first period. He's the best goaltender in the world because it was tied up, and they didn't pull the goalie in the end when the U.S. was holding on to that 4-3 after the Eruzione goal lead. And then the clock ticked away, and they started panicking. The Soviets were dumping the puck. They didn't know what to do because they were just used to winning by 12-1, 16-1, 8-1. And these younger players were just in such great shape. Herb Brooks was brilliant. He actually studied the Soviet workouts and how they would do these workouts to get their legs strong. And the Team USA just kind of took a page out of their own playbook and beat them. But the point is, they unified. They brought the country together. As Al Michaels said, America went from burning flags before the Olympics, literally burning the American flag and protest, and divided America back then in a recession, and morale was down. They went from burning flags to waving flags at the Lake Placid Arena and all around the country after the U.S. won that, really against the Russians, and then had to beat Finland for the gold medal, which they did. So interesting stuff if you just want to look back, not so much if you don't have to be a hockey fan. It's just a well-done documentary, but go back and look at the political times of 1980 and then draw the line forward to today. And I'm not saying anything that today's Olympics are going to do this, but there's a reminder, and I've said this often, when I was reading or hearing in the last week or two, like I could care less about Ellen DeGeneres and what home she buys in California, another $24 billion home there to split her time because she and her wife didn't like England after they left this country a year ago or so, when someone named Donald Trump got elected again and won the presidential race against Kamala Harris. And Ellen, one of these Hollywood types, says, we're out of here. We're moving to England. And then she didn't like England because this is funny. Said she didn't really like the weather over in England. I don't know if you knew this, Ellen, but you can Google that stuff today. Like, hey, hey, Google, what's the weather like in England? What's the average temperature? What's the weather like? And it is pretty depressing. I went there. I knew that as a kid in college when I visited my sister when she was going to school in England. It rained, I think, every day. It was gloomy, and you could have looked that up. But anyway, she won't say she's coming back to split her time in America because the grass isn't always greener. The point is, and I'll end this on the Olympics and that 1980 documentary on the boys of 1980 and the hockey team, and what it did to unite and bring the country together versus apart. And of course, they didn't have the social media like today, which makes it even harder to bring the country together, because everyone's got an opinion and everyone's right and everyone can hide behind their post and be vicious and mean and all these things. And no one's ever wrong. No one's responsible for anything. But the point is, 1980 was a mess politically. This country was in a real, spiral downfall, economically, politically speaking, morale. And this, who would have thought a hockey team? Who would have thought? Because hockey's, 1980, what on today? You look at football last night, look at the ratings. We're a football country in terms of watching any sport on TV, maybe followed by Major League Baseball, maybe followed by the NBA, and last is hockey. But who would have thought a hockey team would bring the country together? And it did, and it was an amazing story. But check out the politics of then versus today, and it's quite eye-opening, interesting. And of course, the other thing is we still are bumping up against, in this case, Vladimir Putin and Russia, and people forget the Cold War and how crazy the Soviets were flexing their nuclear stuff. And 1980, everyone was just waiting and fearful that there was going to, Cold War, nuclear war, and it was really a tough time. And this hockey team did so much. And I think we need to remember, I guess, the reason why I brought up Ellen and moving, because she didn't get an election that went her way with Trump winning over Harris. I think people need to remember, despite all the divisiveness, despite all the yelling and screaming and the craziness, America is still a pretty darn good country, and still probably the best, not probably, strike the word probably, still the best country with all our blemishes and problems. We're still a great country and the freest and best country on earth. And if you don't see that, I guess you don't see that, but try living somewhere else and tell me how that works for you. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H. We'll come back, tell you about an election in Japan, speaking of the economy, and a whole lot more on the Pulse of an H.
107.7
I know spring after this weekend doesn't seem like it's in the air, even though things are going to get a little less frigid this week. But Matt Mayberry, New Hampshire Home Builders, they're already thinking about spring, and I think it's March 14th and 15th is the home shows coming up. And I talking to people in the building trades industry, I don't sense much of a slowdown at all locally with building. And we had, as I mentioned to Matt Mayberry on a call just a moment ago, we had John Stebbins, CEO of Procon, on last week talking about that incredibly successful affordable housing development they're doing in Somersworth, New Hampshire. Phase 1 already sold out. I think it's called Overlook. You can Google just Overlook Somersworth affordable housing. These are quality, beautiful, brand new built units, affordable. And the people in Somersworth get that, and they know how to work with developers. And John Stebbins knows his stuff, one of our great partners and sponsors here at the Pulse of an Age. But as I mentioned, the home show's coming up, and Matt Mayberry's already thinking about spring. But really, I'm sure your builders and your remodelers, Matt, New Hampshire Home Builders, not seeing much of a let up at all, even though we've had quite a real winter.
No, sir. And good morning. It's a great Monday morning to be here in New Hampshire. And Jack, we're really excited about the home show, but you're very correct. One thing that we have seen a change in that helps, and you've been a gladiator on this, people entering the trades, thinking about it. Senator Mark McConkie and I were at a trade school in Moultonborough. They have a full class of 40 young people who want to be electricians. So they're getting it. They're understanding that college isn't the right path for everyone, and you can make a great living at it. Thanks to gladiators like you saying, think about this as an option. But home show, March 14 and 15, 200 vendors. We also have a New England pavilion that's going to support small mom and pop sized businesses in New Hampshire. So it's going to be something for everyone. It's going to be a great weekend, and I'm really excited, as you can tell.
Where's the home show going to be? Manchester?
It is. It's going to be in Manchester against our 59th year, and we're going to be going back again to the downtown Doubletree, right in the center of New Hampshire, 700 Elm Street. And so excited. It's 200 vendors. We're going to be supporting about 40 small businesses in New Hampshire. Beyond that, in our New England pavilion. And it's a great time. If you want to get those estimates, if you want to look at appliances, if you want to talk about what can I do to my kitchen, what can I do to my bathroom, because I can't move, but I need to improve it. And also ADUs, we're going to have some vendors there who are going to talk about accessory dwelling units. Mm-hmm. You can look them in the eye, talk to them. What is this going to cost me?
Yeah.
No going online, no Autobots, person to person.
Yeah, what's great and the people in the industry are just wonderful. We have a lot of listeners in the trades. And of course, I think Wednesday, we're going to have our friends from New Hampshire Technical Institute, one of our great partners and sponsors, talking in the studios about you talk about that young person going to be an apprentice or work in the electrical part. But these trade jobs or careers, they're the millionaire next door. No offense, is no longer the engineer, doctor, or pilot. It's the plumbing and heating person. Matt,
correct.
I did see a story a week or so ago. The median home price now of a home on the Seacoast is $1 million. Lakes region, I think, is higher. I mean, towns like Meredith and Tuftonboro, Moultonboro, a new home. I know Eric Chimberg is building some homes at the Winnie, for 55 and older. I'm not saying it's a 55 and older community, but these are $1.5 million. It's expensive to build and buy a new home today. But I think the part of the industry that's vibrant, now you're the head of the New Hampshire Home Builders, so you correct me if I'm wrong, Matt Mayberry, the vibrant part of the industry is that all the people in the remodeling and sort of the servicing part is nonstop this winter. I mean, I've talked to kitchen and bath designers, they're out straight, remodelers, people doing inside work. That's a big part of the industry, right?
It sure is, because as your home value has risen, that allows you to tap into some of the equity in your home. I may not be able to move, but I've always loved the neighborhood. I like where I am at. So let's upgrade the kitchen, the bathroom. Let's put in new flooring. Let's stay here. A lot of folks are also looking at creating those ADUs, accessory dwelling units, so they can bring mom or dad back up from Florida so they have a place to stay. They can sell that big house. So you're very correct. Once again, you're spot on. If you can't afford to move, improve where you're at. and augment where you're at through ADUs, new flooring, new kitchen, new baths. And when you come to the home show on March 14th and 15th at nhstatehomeshow.com, see our 200 vendors and map out how you can improve your home without having to move.
Yeah, good stuff. So the home show, bigger and better than ever. I think people are going to be, man, I'm not complaining because I remember when you did that wonderful wreaths on the graves, grave sites of veterans in Dover, and it was really snowing. And I remember that morning, it was just like a good old fashioned snowstorm. That was a lot of years ago. This is a real winter, but I think by March, people are going to be ready for a home show and the decks and all the outside stuff, right?
Oh, they're so ready, landscapers, and just, they're excited to get out. And you can come out, view 200 vendors, look them in the eye, talk to them about your projects, talk to them about your dreams, and price compare. Go around. This is a great opportunity to put down the phone, get away from the laptop, come look at a human being and say, this is what I can do. How can you help me? So it's March 14th and 15th, downtown Manchester. You're going to be hearing and seeing a whole lot more of us in the coming weeks. But, again, Jack, I cannot thank you enough. You are a complete gladiator helping us so much through this.
I just amaze young people and the opportunities, and it's such a big part of our good economy here. So thank you, Matt. And we'll get you on towards the end of the week, talk about the home show more.
Yes, please. We'll talk about the Hewitt School and young people building tiny homes.
Let's do that.
That'd be a fun spot.
Yeah, and if you want to have a guest call in with you when we do that, we'll line it up Thursday or Friday. You and I will coordinate. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Bye.
J-Dog, we do have some breaking news. Michael Graham may be with us right now in New Hampshire Journal. One of the state commissioners, if I have this right, is announcing a rather unplanned resignation this morning. Take it away, Michael.
Unplanned but not unexpected. As one State House Senate source told me, the last person to know what's happening was Sarah Stewart. Sarah Stewart is the embattled commissioner at the DCNR, which is this, no place backwater gig where you stick, political flax like Sarah Stewart. And she'd had a lot of high profile fails. Remember that monument they put up, the marker to the Communist Party head that they had to pull down in Concord? Remember that, Jack?
Vaguely.
Yeah. That was her. That was a brilliant Sarah Stewart move. So news of the ICE request for information from her department about that land in Merrimack was kept from, everybody, the governor and the executive council, until it was somehow landed in the hands of the New Hampshire ACLU, who somehow knew the exact person to request it from and somehow got 24-hour turnaround on a 91A request, which, Jack, I'll tell you, New Hampshire Journal does them all the time. We do not get 24-hour turnaround on this. And so after an embarrassing hearing where she refused to apologize, but she dragged one of her lackeys in and forced him to apologize, the word was out. My sources say that the executive council was ready to vote 4-1 to throw her out. And the governor requested her resignation, and she handed it over this morning. And so the already embattled career of Sarah Stewart is now over.
Well, it sounds like it was kind of a force out, even if you resign. I mean, that's the way it works in Washington.
No, she was absolutely forced out. She had no intention of resigning. She stood there in front of the council. Commissioner Wheeler asked her, so why don't you? She's already announced she's not gonna, she's gonna leave at the end of her term, because she knew she was not going to get reappointed. Yeah. And so he said, move up your date. Do it now. She's, oh, no, I'm doing a great job. Here's the good news. Accountability. New Hampshire's a small state, small political culture. People don't like to be mean to each other. So a lot of times you let stuff slide. I would argue that that's how you ended up with the Gino Marconi situation. He was, he'd been a problem for a long time. People needed to give him a nudge. Didn't want to. Now, finally he made such a mess that it went from there. But look, so he's gone. Babs, his wife, is gone. Julia Williams, who had this bizarre, I'm going to run for governor, except I haven't lived in the state long enough. And oh, by the way, I voted illegally, is gone. And now Sarah Stewart is gone. And all this is good news, not because of these people. They're just people, it's politics, but because it's good that when people do the wrong thing, that there's a consequence, and maybe the next person won't sit on important documents about DHS building a ICE facility
Yeah.
in the middle of New Hampshire. But keep in mind, Jack, the Democrats are going to keep saying that Governor Ayotte knew about this, that there was a lot of social media stuff this weekend about Ayotte's administration knew, which
Right.
of course is true. Someone down in the basement did, but she's going to take a beating over this because of an incompetent or motivated person, and that person is now gone.
Thank you, Michael Graham. Some breaking news. Commissioner Sarah
Thank you.
Stewart resigning. Looks like kind of a forced resignation. Thank you, Michael. Real quick, our friends at Auto Fair, our state police segment we just heard on Thursday, talking about recruitment and safe driving, safe cars, and the debate over vehicle inspections. But our friends at Auto Fair, just as one of our listeners of Good Morning New Hampshire, the Pulse of an H, they always like to put up some used vehicles to give you, no pun intended, a good inside track. So Debbie Roy, they sent over. They have a GMC Sierra 2026. Wow, 2026 GMC Sierra Pro Black 462. I'm not sure of the mileage, but it's pretty low for $49,699. As you know, some of these trucks can be $60,000-$70,000. So there's a new GMC Sierra 2500 HD Pro Black. You can get details from Debbie, $49,699. Also, in 2020, Chevrolet Silverado 1500 Custom North Sky Blue Metallic does have 109,984 miles. It's a crew cab, but it's priced under $20,000. Contact Debbie if you want to take a test drive. Supposed to get some snow tomorrow night. These are great vehicles year round, but if you want to take a test drive, contact Debbie, D-E-B-B-I, Deb or Debbie Roy at Auto Fair Honda across the mall, New Hampshire. And her number, direct, just say Jack, the Pulse of an H. Just one of the perks you get from listening to get these some good deals. 603-634-1095. Debbie, Jack, the Pulse, 603-634-1095. Interesting having Matt on from New Hampshire Home Builders. We're going to talk more about the smaller, affordable, or accessible dwelling units and a whole lot more. And by the way, if you are in the building and trade industry, our friends at New Hampshire Technical Institute, we'll hear from them with an update Wednesday. They have great 2-year associate deals. One of our great partners and sponsors, NHTI, New Hampshire Technical Institute, the original community college, and they have the lowest college tuition per capita of any of the 7 community college. But New Hampshire Technical Institute, they have great 2-year associate degrees in the trades. But if you are a builder and developer into real estate, but builders and developers listening, check out seacoastdirt.com. Easy to remember. Get the dirt on building and development on the coast and the lakes region. seacoastdirt.com. Daily news put together for you just in the building and trade industry. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google, play the Pulse of an Age. Doug Tangden, World Market Advisors, on deck next.
This is the thanks to alpinegold.com. Good Morning New Hampshire, live from the Outdoor Pride Studios. Now, back to Jack on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
Interesting. One of the commissioners in New Hampshire unexpectedly, or maybe expectedly, resigning this morning. That's breaking. We had that just moments ago. First, we'll come back to that. Reminder, we're on YouTube as well. The first hour of the show, YouTube. If you want to stream and check our video out live, we're live right now, broadcasting video as well as all our AM and FM News Talk audio, streaming. Hey, Alexa, Google Play, the Pulse of an H, but on YouTube, everything with us is the Pulse of an H. Easy, the Pulse of an H. Doug Tengden on the economic side of things, World Market Advisors, worldmarketadvisors.com. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Jack. How are you?
Good. Our poll question up on X this morning at the Pulse of an H. Are you watching much of the Winter Olympics? I bet you are.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Unbelievable toughness, but probably not the best decision by Lindsey Vonn. But how can you not just be absolutely blown away by how tough she is? Just a sad fall, but what a tough skier. And of course, you're a big fan of Michaela Schifrin.
Yes, and a big fan of Lindsay too. Her father was my coach in Minnesota.
Really?
So, yeah. Just to digress, it had nothing to do with the knee. She was airborne and she clipped her arm on the gate.
I saw
rotated her in the air.
No, I saw that, but you just wonder. I mean, she is 41.
You can ski without an ACL.
I know.
You have the quad strength and the ham strength, and guess what? She's got both.
Oh, she was in the gym. She was working out and doing these exercises after the rupture, but that show you how tough she was. She had deep bone bruising and a messed up meniscus as well. She's tough. She is tough.
She won her gold medal in Vancouver after a fall with deep bone bruising.
Unbelievable.
So yeah, and by the way, she still leads the Women's World Cup in downhill.
I know, it's just amazing.
She probably will finish the season in the top 3, which she doesn't have anything to prove. She's proven. She's shown that she's just amazing.
And it's too bad because she knew that course so well. She's 12 times she's won there. Hey,
yeah,
Doug.
it would have been great to be 1-2. I don't know if she would have beaten Breezy, but they certainly would have had 2 Americans on the podium.
Yep. All right, Doug.
Yeah.
Interesting election in Japan, and just give us a couple minutes on anything coming up or where are we at? And a lot of people still scratching their head. I just know one thing. We're coming off the Super Bowl, and the price of food, the price of chicken, the price of meat, everything still seems pretty pricey, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yes, and the Japanese prime minister is saying she's going to end their 8% sales tax on food, which, in New Hampshire, we know something about sales taxes and what they do to business. And so that's positive for the Japanese economy. It's positive for the Japanese economy that she has a supermajority, which means no brinksmanship, no games that they're going to play with the budget. It's positive for the Japanese economy that she has talked about having a stronger defense posture. So she's stabilizing some of the defense companies. So the Nikkei, the Japanese stock market, was up 4% overnight based on this stability and the fact that she had a supermajority and the opposition is in disarray.
Yeah, it's interesting. Where are we at on, do we feel prices got to stabilize? Is springtime a good thing? I mean, the only thing seems to be, gas prices are sort of holding, but everything else is expensive, and interest rates sort of staying at about 6.2% if you're borrowing money.
Yeah, that's right. We're at about 6.25% for 30-year mortgages. I would say the economy is solid, but not jumping out of the not running down the downhill course. But I do think that gas prices probably edge lower. I think Trump's idea about getting Venezuelan oil back online, it made a lot of people's heads explode. But it's actually not a bad thing for the oil market, for the consumer to have lower energy prices. So I think that is probably coming online. I think the lower energy prices will feed into food prices, but it all takes time. The cost of fertilizer is linked to the cost of oil. That's why it jumped in 2022. But I think lowering those input prices will gradually lower the price of goods. However, price of labor is not going to go down,
right?
And labor is a big component of everything we do. So I think prices hang out here, we don't see significant inflation, we gradually head back to the 2% inflation number.
Doug, I know we could do a whole show on this, but in 1 minute or 2 minutes, I know the jury is probably too early to tell, but a big part of the Trump administration was really leveraging adjusting tariffs worldwide, aggressively adjusting tariffs, and whether it was European Union or individual countries. And I'm not getting into the backdrop because a lot of these were lopsided against us, but is it too early to tell if some of these high prices are a result of this or not? And over the next year or two, is this going to turn out to be a good thing economically for our local economy on the tariffs, or is the debate going to continue for years, good or bad?
I think the debate will continue. I think the debate will be polarized. I think the opposition will claim that tariffs raised prices. The administration will claim that tariffs had nothing to do with prices, and it will be mixed. Some prices will clearly go up. Imports from China will clearly be more expensive. Services obviously are cheaper, and we've got a whole host of things that are getting cheaper as a result of technology. So there's no definitive answer. It's going to be polarized and partisan. And I think the larger picture of inflation settling back down to 2%, that the Federal Reserve being able to ease gradually, and that the easing on the short end of interest rates will actually help local banks, the smaller banks, get busy on Main Street. That will be the
Right.
story 2 years from now. That will be the story of 2028.
Really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Let's come back to that sometime soon. Thank you, Doug.
All right, Jack, you have a great week.
Right. WorldMarketAdvisors.com. We come back. Neil Levesque, St. Anselm College, update on some of the local politics. And New Hampshire, we had earlier live, New Hampshire Commissioner Stewart, Sarah Stewart, resigning this morning in the wake of this proposed possible maybe ICE facility in Merrimack, New Hampshire. Back on the Pulse of the Nation in a moment.